Welcome to part 2 of the video series on human resource planning. In the earlier part, we tried to define human resource planning. We tried to find out why human resource planning is very essential for any company to succeed in today's time. The HR managers always have to be on their toes to find out quality talent from the market, because 1 hour of shutdown of the machinery, 1 hour of no production, 1 hour of zero production can lead to a losses in crores of rupees. So the HR manager has to ensure that the company has a steady source of people who are joining compared to the people who are leaving the company. So there should always be a proper mix of the demand and supply. The demand should always be equal to supply or equivalent to the supply. You cannot have a deficit and you cannot have a surplus inside the company. If there is a surplus of people inside the company, your company has to give them extra remuneration and you will suffer losses. And if there is a shortage of people inside your company will not be performing at the optimal level and you will be again losing money. So HRP is very important. So come on, let us look at the objectives of human resource planning. The objectives of human resource planning include aligning their human resource management with the strategic vision. I told you the company wants to achieve a vision, a long-term vision that it wants to achieve in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years time. Now, if there are the right amount of people, the right kind of people, with the right abilities at the right time, at the right place, then you will achieve your vision and your mission in the long term. And if the people are not there inside your company, those mission and vision numbers will not be achieved. Therefore, HRP is very essential so that you can achieve your strategic vision. The second objective of HRP is to eliminate any kind of labor surplus, because if you're having labor in surplus, it's a cost. It's a cost to the company. Your resources are getting wasted. You are paying excess money to the employees as salaries, which was not required. It's a wastage of the investors' money. The people who have employed in your company, the people who have invested in your company will not like that idea that you are having an excess of labor inside your company. Also, the objective of HRP, human resource planning, is to avoid any kind of labor shortage. Again, I told you, in case of a labor shortage, your production will come to a halt. Your sales figures will come to a halt and your productivity will take a beating, which cannot be afforded by any company. Therefore, eliminating labor surplus and avoiding labor shortage is one of the primary objectives of human resource planning. Now, also, apart from that, human resource planning also ensures that effectiveness and efficiency is achieved by the workers of the company. You have to ensure as a human resource manager that you cope up with the absences. You have to ensure how many people will be absent on this particular year, in this particular year. How many people will be absent and what is the buffer that you have. If 5 people are getting absent, who are the people who will be replacing those people so that the production does not take a hit. Also, you have to ensure that in case a conflict arises between two groups of people, what is your backup plan? Who will do the work in case of a conflict? You have to also ensure that some people will be promoted into a higher profile and some people might be asked to leave the company. So what is your backup plan? For people who are going to get promoted, who will take the profile that they had been working for? And for the people who have left your company, who is the person who is going to replace the people who have left your company? So as an HRP professional, as a human resource professional, these are the objectives that you must always keep in mind. Why HRP? You have to anticipate the workforce requirement rather than getting surprised by the change of events. Sudden kind of a particular event, a particular calamity strikes and suddenly you are at a loss is not the right strategy. And that is why we have management in place. Management is there because we should not be getting surprised by the changes. Suddenly you find your 100 employees leaving the company. That should be a surprise to the company. That kind of situation should be avoided. Basically, HRP is all about reduction in the uncertainty. You have to reduce the uncertainty. You have to be absolutely sure where your labor is going to come from, where your resources are going to come from, and only then you will be able to succeed. Now, in the case the organization is going through a growth phase, if the company is going up, it will be requiring more and more labor. It will be requiring extra manpower. So where is that manpower going to come from? And in case your company is going down, in case your company is reducing the production numbers, you have to ensure that some of your employees leave the company. So who are the people whom you are going to ask to leave? So these are some of the questions that the HRP professional, the human resource professional, should always be ready to answer. And in the process, HR planning allows the proper identification of which employees to move, which employees to call in, the right selection of employees, developing of employees. Some employees need to be developed for the new roles that are going to get created. Some employees have to be demoted. Some employees have to be asked to move out, and the rightful management of these kind of people. And the best part and the most important part, coping with any kind of changes that come in. If suddenly a calamity strikes, just imagine, I'm using this particular example again and again, but the point should be made clear. Just look at the times of Corona right now, COVID-19. It has suddenly changed the way in which companies are working. Suddenly, thousands of workers are not being able to go to the workplace. So how is the company going to achieve its production numbers? That is a question that the HR manager has to answer. How, in this uncertain kind of an event, how are the HR managers, how is the management of the company going to cope with this particular challenge? Suddenly your hundreds of employees are not going to come to the workplace, and still you have to ensure that you meet your production numbers, you meet your profit numbers. So that is a question that the HR manager has to be ready to answer at any given point of time. Now, the major steps in the HR process, human resource planning process, is first you have to analyze and to find out what are the objectives of your human resource planning thing. Then you have to find out your current inventory. What is the number of people that you are having? What are the skill sets that they are having? You have to have an inventory. You have to have a record of all the people that who are working with you. Third, you have to forecast the demand for the next year. You have to forecast the demand of how many people you are going to require this particular year. You would be noticing that most of the companies, for example, the IT companies, declare at the beginning of the year, this year they are going to recruit 4,000 employees, 4,000 students from across the campuses across India. That is a number which comes after they have done their human resource planning. They know that they have these many works coming up, these many projects coming up, and for that they will be requiring 4,000 people, and that 4,000 people is their demand for that year. And how are they going to meet the demand? They will be visiting various campuses and they'll be recruiting students. That is the demand forecasting part. Then you have to estimate the gaps. How many people do you actually require, and how many people are already there with you? You have to find out the difference between that. And after you have found out the difference, you have to formulate a plan to bring the right kind of people inside your company. And what are the modes? Will you go for campus hiring? Will you go and conduct interviews? Will you go and promote your own employees and give them the new profiles? Or will you use some other method? Will you use external hiring or will you use internal hiring? So these are some of the questions that will formulate the plan. After you have formulated the plan, you implement the plan. That is step number 6. And after you have implemented the plan, you need to keep on monitoring, controlling, and taking feedback from the entire mechanism. And these are the major steps in the HRP process. Now, what are the factors that affect human resource planning? The type of the organization affects human resource planning very much. Type of an organization would include whether a particular company is a bureaucratic kind of a company. In a bureaucratic kind of a company, the hiring process has to go through a particular process, a particular structure. There is a standard operating procedure of hiring. Advertisements will be moved out, people will be coming, they will be giving the interviews. It's a very long process in a bureaucratic setup. On the other hand, if it is not a bureaucratic structure, if the company is following a flat structure, open door policy structure, in that case human resource planning will happen automatically. You find the right guy, you find the right candidate, you automatically hire him. There is no bureaucracy that is stopping you. So type of the organization affects your human resource planning. Then the strategy of the organization, whether your organization is going for an expansion mode, it will require more people, or whether it is going in a decline mode, it wants to ask some people to leave the company. So what is the strategy of your organization? Then you'll also have to look at the environmental uncertainties. Look at COVID-19. Many of the companies like Uber, Ola and Swiggy, Zomato, many of these companies, IT companies have also asked many of their employees to stay back at home. They have removed their employees from the job roles, from the payrolls. Why? Because of economic uncertainty. So human resource planning is beset with economic uncertainties. Then you also have to ensure that your forecasting methods are proper. Suppose the method that you use to forecast the demand is wrong, then you will automatically be ending up having an excess or a deficient number of people inside your company. Now, nature of the job also affects human resource planning. If it's an IT based job, that will have a separate kind of a treatment, and if it's a logistics kind of a job like Swiggy, like Flipkart, which have totally got affected during the COVID-19, the nature of the job also affects your human resource planning. Where are the people going to come from? If you require highly talented kind of a people, suppose Google wants to hire highly talented engineers from across the world, and it wants to do it in 5 days, that is not a possibility. It will take at least 5 months to hire the best brains in the world. But if Swiggy or Zomato wants to hire low educated people just for delivering food, it's an easy thing, and they can hire 200, 300, 400 people in just 5 days. So nature of the job also affects human resource planning. How quickly you are going to meet your demand and supply is decided by the nature of the job. Also, last but not the least, outsourcing of the jobs also impacts your human resource planning. If you have outsourced most of your jobs, you need not be concerned much about human resource planning, because you have given a piece of your problem to the outsourcing agent, to the third party, and they will be in tension how to solve the problem for you. Now, these were the factors affecting HRP. What are the forecasting techniques? This video is again getting longer. We'll be discussing it in the part 3 of the video series. Stay with me and watch that video. We'll be covering the forecasting techniques, and we'll be trying to conclude this topic of human resource planning in the next video. Thank you so much.